in our workplaces. Yesterday we talked about how we can use human design as an entry point to build high-performing teams. And what we want to get into more today is being in an aligned community. Because once we're like with people where we don't need to continuously explain ourselves or defend ourselves or hide parts of who we are, then we can actually show up with a lot more energy. And one of these interesting studies that I talked about last week as well was that when we go into workplaces and feel that we can't be ourselves, it takes up to 40% of our energy to actually hide parts of who we are. And so Renske and I want to get more into how do we actually create these spaces of aligned community. And it's more about actually being with people in that space as well. So it's not so much about doing business, but it's more about who are the people that I want to do life with. So who are the people that I really want to be with throughout this journey. And with that, let's open the floor. Renske, what are your sort of reflections on that?
I love this. Reminds me of something that I wrote a while ago. Again, every day you say something, I'm like, oh, I've been, thinking and writing about this as well. Which is, if your business is your passion, be careful about who you work with. Because indeed, if you're not aligned, and what you just said, really, really important, if you first lose a lot of energy to be something that you're not, or to explain all the time who you are, or you cannot be authentically yourself within a group of people or with the people that you work with, so much precious energy gets lost. And what I have felt, you invited me to be part of your Deep Connection Forum a while ago. I can honestly say, Toby, I told you that already, but I think for the people that are here listening today or watching this whenever time, during COVID, we spent so much time in online environments, and the energy that radiate from the people in your Deep Connection Forum, they didn't know me yet. Maybe few, I'm not sure. I didn't know anybody of that. And I was there and I'm like, oh my God, this is like, it feels like coming home. These people are just embracing everybody and anybody who pops in fully, that is beautiful. So if you create that in your working environment, that really saves you a lot of energy, especially as a manifesting generator. So I had to squeeze it in again, right? But for every person, wow, how beautiful is that? If we start to focus more on, can I really be myself around these people? Do I have to explain myself all the time? An aligned community is so beautiful. I think that's really a new, the quantum team, right? It is like I think people should focus on that more and more. Who do I work with? And how do I work with them?
Yeah, really, my friend Marcus in Istanbul inspired me a lot with like that thinking as well. So he has this, I mean, it's not his, I think it's from a guy called Mark Nepo, this whole idea of basically these circles. So where a community that functions without rules is effectively up to 150 people. It's kind of these like tribal things, like if one man and woman come together and create offspring and their offspring creates offspring, then sort of like over a lifetime, if you rapidly procreate, you could end up with this like 150 sort of people. That's sort of like the narrative there. I'm not quite sure if I actually like fully buy into that, but definitely is this like 150 people is something that I've become a lot more aligned with. And then having these different circles, so where basically in the center it's like, okay, like who am I, like basically my essence, and then the 5 people closest to me, and then 15 that are effectively familiar, and then 50, and then 150. And so I feel the interesting piece in that is when I often speak about deep connection, for me the piece is, we need to know like really like who am I? Like what is actually the life that I want to live? And then finding the people that want to live a similar life. So one of the big things once I was leaving the world of tech was like, man, I really freaking love this spiritual exploration and seeing, okay, like what is actually like my inside really like look like, what is energy within. And so the more I actually became honest about it, the more I then found the people in that space. And I mean, as you say, then suddenly there is no more need to prove or try to pretend to be something, but it's like, I want to go this direction. And the fun thing that I recognized him was like, there's actually so many people like on that path already, you know. And it just felt like when I was sort of like in this tech community, I felt like, oh man, everything seemed tech, you know. It seemed like investment rounds and whatever, exponential technology and blah blah blah. And it seemed like that was the only bubble that existed. And then the moment I stepped out, it was like, man, there's tons of other bubbles, you know. There's like this spiritual guru bubble, and there is the bubble of people who are building small companies just because they actually want to use work as a way of expressing themselves. And then I recognized, like, man, there's a bubble for basically any weird interest I could potentially have. And so that became suddenly really liberating, where I felt like, man, there's communities like wherever I would want to go. So it's actually really just up to, okay, where do I want to go? And then finding these communities and connecting with these humans.
There's a lot in what you just said. And it's not only just about finding those communities, but attracting those by showing up as your authentic self. Because indeed, it is so tiring to be something that you're not, or trying to be something that you're not. I also have conversations like this with artists in the electronic music industry where I am working. And so many artists try to be something that they are not, to keep up an image or to beat the competition on social media or as a brand. And it's just not sustainable. And I have spoken to some artists that are like, I'm done with that. You know, after 20 years in the business, I'm done with that. I'm showing up as me right now. And if I have to look a certain way or act a certain way to attract some followers in that genre, then they're not my followers. Then they're not my tribe. Same for companies and people that you work with. Of course, when it comes to working in a company, employees don't have a choice who they work with a lot of the time, most of the time. But then it is about not putting too much, and then it's about focus on get the work done without putting too much energy in how you started this conversation in trying to be something that you are not, or convincing other people about your beliefs or values. Then it's just like, keep it practical. But if you have a choice, spend your energy on the people that you want to attract. Don't try to be the brand or the entrepreneur or the business for everybody, because you will not be that. It's just not possible. It's just not possible.
And on the choice piece, I personally think like everybody has a choice all the time. It's whether people claim the choice or not.
Yeah.
So I feel that because I think that's where really the ultimate like personal freedom lies. Like, choose. You know, like we can choose what information we want to listen to. We can choose the people that we want to invest time with. And at times it might be actually painful to make these choices. And I think that's where so often there is this weird notion, oh, I don't have a choice. No, you always have a choice. Are you willing to endure some other sort of like potentially unpleasant experiences? But you can always choose. I think it's really the awakening to that personal power, that we can decide what we want in our lives. And then it does take courage, and it may mean that you will walk alone for a little bit. And I mean, even these moments I would say are actually like really freaking powerful, because they for me at least created moments where I felt more of who I was. Because in that regard, you know, when when there's this thing of like, oh, there's not a choice, and it's basically becoming this misalignment, and then I feel it pushes one into sort of non-being. So I mean, for me, when we talked about these communities and everything, and being in sort of like aligned community. So when my like partnership with the mother of my kids first fell apart, I then recognized like, man, yeah, I really need to work on some of my behaviors, and one of them was like acting out through porn. And so then I went actually to Sex Addicts Anonymous, and in that moment was like, super interesting. There's suddenly a community of aligned people who are working on healing similar pain. And then like shortly after, so a couple of months into that, I recognized it was actually not really about sex addiction, was about a deeper thing of like codependence. And I went to like Codependence Anonymous and recognized again there, man, tons of humans who experience something similar. And I feel that was actually really powerful to be in these environments where, yeah, people were going through similar challenges. And what disintegrated in that moment was this, yeah, it's something that only you experience. It's like, whatever, I must be weird because I have that sort of difficulty in my life. And I mean, just basically being in that sort of aligned community for a moment of time was really helpful to me to actually like work through some of the internal stuff. Then what I would also say is really important is to recognize like when one outgrows a certain community. Because for example, with the sex addicts community, someone was like, man, it is actually not the problem that I'm having. And so the community helped me to kind of unravel a few layers, but then it also was important for me to step away from it, to basically not make it part of my identity. Because I don't have it, I experienced it. Same with like codependence. I'm not codependent, I experienced codependency. And so even in then these moments, stepping away and being like, yeah, cool, actually this environment has helped me to facilitate a certain transformation, now step into the next environment. And so I feel this is really where this aligned community piece is really important for me, is the awareness of what is the journey that I am on, and then what are the environments. And for some people, for example, also, I mean, being in the tech world, I would say it was an environment that helped me and was an aligned community for a certain amount of time to actually facilitate a transformation for me, because it gave me financial stability. I also, now looking back, I learned actually a lot from my boss, how to run teams and not basically caretake the emotional ups and downs that the employees have, but be like, look, this is where we're going. And if that's cool with you, then happy to join the ride. And so I feel that's really, for me, where I'm beginning to see more and more this community piece, that ultimately every environment has a community, but it's up to us to decide, okay, is it aligned with where I want to go? And if not, then taking the responsibility and being like, okay, cool, I'll step away. And so I feel that brings me then back to what you were saying about the mental health piece in the music industry, where a lot of, your heart is basically going, is because I feel like mental health arises like once the community is misaligned, and once it feels like, oh, I can't actually fully be, I need to do in order to show up in a certain way.
I think it also comes down to what you just said about your communities. Thousands of years, we call those tribes. That's still inside of us. We just look for the tribe to be a part of, because we are afraid to go. That's our deepest fear, right? To go, to be abandoned. That's not safe. That's not love. You and everybody here on the planet wants to feel loved and feel safe. No matter what kind of community is your tribe. And I think, yes, healing can take place when maybe you become aware of you showed up as your inauthentic self. It's like, oh, I'm losing myself here. I don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable. And then you're going to find, who am I actually? And you don't do that by yourself. There is a tribe for you, and that's why you started to heal from your addiction or from your, it was an eye-opener. And I think healing takes place when you find the right tribe for you that is aligned, and it can be a temporarily one, definitely. I also want to go back a little bit to where you said, where I absolutely agree that everything is a choice. We always have a choice. But this is also a very privileged thing to say sometimes. Maybe, I was growing up in the Western world. There are so many people out there that really feel they don't have a choice. I also feel sometimes I don't have a choice about some stuff. And then it depends on from which perspective we look at things. But so yes, basically as a human being, we have a choice. We always have a choice, but it sometimes doesn't feel like it, right? It really feels like we're stuck. We don't have a choice. That's just something that I really wanted to add to this conversation, because probably some people, and I know what it is to feel very, very, very stuck, and you feel you don't have a choice.
I think sorry, go ahead.
No.
So I was just wanting to say on the choice piece, what has really opened my eyes in that regard, that like choice, like the ultimate choice is like how we perceive something. And so reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, have you come across that book actually?
No. Which one is that?
It might be really interesting for it's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl.
I haven't read it. No, I heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, and I found it really fascinating because he was in concentration camp, and I mean the gist effectively is that one of the things that stuck with me is like, like a person who knows their why can endure almost anyhow. And so I mean there's this sort of like endurance aspect.
Yeah.
But then there's also this other aspect in that where it's really about perception.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously there are certain things that happen on the outside.
Yes.
But nobody can actually take away how we interpret it,
yes.
what meaning we make of it. And so this is where I feel everybody has a choice. Yeah, I mean, we might not have like a choice about our external environment, but we have a choice how we interpret it.
Exactly. You know what? I thank you for bringing this up. It also reminds me of Mandela, who was in prison for 20 years. And he said what he learned and what he actually preaches is like, nobody could take my freedom away because that's inside of me. That's in my mind. So in that sense, yeah, we went really deep here, but that is a really, really, it's beautiful that you actually dropped that in, because I'm like, yeah, it makes sense again. Yes, in that sense, we always have a choice. Yeah.
And so I feel that sort of like choice piece then, because ultimately I feel the alignment, and that's why we had these conversations last week, the alignment first needs to rise basically within who we are. And then like once there is an alignment and there's a sort of like internal sense of power of like, yes, I can actually always choose how I feel about something. And then that's why I feel now stepping this week into more the external pieces. Then like once, we have this alignment within, then we can find the alignment through, for example, aligned communities, or how we set up our teams or partnerships, or whatever sort of like human construct we're then building around the thing that's true within.
Yeah. Are you taking those choices very, very conscious? Are you very much aware of who you work with all the time?
I'm becoming increasingly aware. Like I'm getting to the point now where unless I'm co-creating something with someone, I'm actually not just wanting to have a random conversation. And so it's also, putting basically systems in place to, make that by design. I have, like, for example, I'm building one of these systems for myself where it's like 150 people that I want to do life with. And then, so I group them in these like different circles of proximity. And then I also see, okay, like what projects do I do together with them, so that I begin to see like, okay, who are actually the humans that I'm really, creating something meaningful with. Because I personally find that, I want to do life with people, and I want to work with people that I'm friends with, that I genuinely love as human beings, where it's not this sort of like extractive, yeah, we do business and make money, because ultimately, yeah, like what do I want to do with the money anyway? I want a certain experience. And so that's why I'm basically looking at, okay, who are the people that, yeah, I can create these cool experiences with, and work, and yeah, these things being one of these experiences. And then, I mean, the other thing that I'm also putting in place is that there's always an energy sort of like exchange. And so one of the experiments that I am going to launch is for people that basically just want to talk. It's like, yeah, cool. Like if you just want to talk, fill out this Calendly thing. It's like 20 quid. And ultimately, yeah, like what do you want to co-create? So basically putting in a filter function in terms of access, so that the people that come through, the likelihood that there's some meaningful conversation and some meaningful co-creation is there. And so, I mean, that's something that was also really interesting, because I dabbled with the idea for a little bit. But I always felt like, shall I do it? Shall I not do it? And it's really interesting to see that it's ultimately just a function of self-esteem as well. Like, how much do I value my time? And I begin to now see, like, man, I want to work 4 days a week, and I don't want to talk to anybody necessarily in the mornings, because that's my creation time. And so, I mean, with you, it's a different thing, because we are co-creating something. So that goes into that sort of creation moment. And so, yeah, it becomes really interesting to see, like, how do I invest the 24 hours that I have to ultimately set my state to, be happy, like be in that state of, yes, I love life.
Yeah, you are very, very aware of all these things. I just cannot help but to think about the people. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, but I've also suffered from a severe burnout, and I have worked, besides my career in music, in advertisement and film industry, and there are so many people that feel stuck.
Absolutely.
And I know where you are coming from, and I know where I am coming from, but I also know what it feels like to be stuck. And if I would be the one listening to this conversation right now, I would be thinking, like, yeah, good for you. I'm being the advocate of the devil here. I'm like, yeah, good for you, but I'm stuck here, and you're creating this awesome life for yourself. Good for you. But they're probably being very, very skeptical. This is where I'm coming back to the no choice. Sorry.
Yeah.
There was like a scratch, and I don't know why I had to bring this up. But it's just because I've been there. I know what it is to feel stuck. I know what it is to be burned out. I know what it is to not be happy in your environment, or with the people that you are working with, or have to work with, or maybe that's something that we can tap into another time as well. Like,
I'd love to do this tomorrow. Let's go deeper on the stuckness piece. So I'd love for you to maybe just take a couple of notes, and so tomorrow we can have really just kind of like unraveling, and also absolutely coming from a place of compassion in that sense there as well. Amazing. Let's do this. So tomorrow we're going to go into stuckness and becoming unstuck.
Yes.
Awesome, Renske. I love it. See you again tomorrow.
Okay, Toby.